Good evening, friends, and welcome to the United to Block Project 2025 live stream, hosted tonight by We Stand United, Working Families Party, and MoveOn. I am your host for the evening, Chris Percy, Senior Director of Member Productions and Special Projects at MoveOn. So listen, we are just 15 days away from Election Day. I can't believe it's just 15 days away. And there is so much at stake. And while VP Harris's candidacy has sparked a renewed joy and hope for many of us, we must take time to address the very real and quite literally horrifying plan that MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump want to enact if they win the White House. And that is why we are here today to discuss and, more importantly, get fired up not only to vote, but to do the work to get out the vote. So to help us understand the dangers of Project 2025, we have an amazing lineup of movement leaders, activists, and friends to dig in with us. Tonight, we'll hear from President of the Communications Workers of America, Claude Cummings Jr., James Kirby, Chairman of the Teamsters National Black Caucus, Grace Martinez Rosas, Executive Director of United We Dream, Co-Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Texas, Drusilla Tigner, actor, activist, and the visionary behind this convening to dig into Project 2025. Mr. Mark Ruffalo is with us tonight. And we have a special guest with us, Mr. Vilmer. I'm sorry, I'm just really excited about it. Vilder, excuse me, Valderrama is going to be with us tonight as well. So I'm really excited about that. I'm sort of geeking out, folks, because I'm big fans of both of these actors. So we are in for a long, wonderful evening together. It's just about an hour. And look, take out some paper, call your friends, so y'all can go. We got time. You can send a link over. We are going to have a good time tonight. I am so excited about this. So again, invite and share with this live stream with some friends and family. I also invite you to take notes. We're going to learn a lot and discover ways that you can help us win the White House over the next 2 weeks. First, to ground us in the moment we're in, I'd like to introduce Maurice Mitchell, National Director of Working Families Party. Working Families Party is a phenomenal organization and partner that is a multiracial party that fights for workers over bosses and people over the powerful. Maurice himself, a racial, social, and economic justice organizer, social movement strategist, and leader, has been at the helm of Working Families Party since 2018, and his leadership shows. So please join me from wherever you're watching this right now in welcoming Maurice Mitchell. Welcome to the call tonight, Maurice.
Oh man, thank you so much, Chris. It's so good to be with you and everybody around the country. Again, my name is Maurice Mitchell. I'm the National Director of Working Families Party, and I'm really proud to be in this space, to be in the presence of union leaders and movement leaders that are doing the critical work, state by state by state, but the critical work in swing states. I'm calling from Pennsylvania to defeat Donald Trump. And a lot of the coverage of Project 2025 has talked about Project 2025 as a scary list of ideas. But if we just think of it in those terms, we don't get a real understanding of what we're actually fighting against. And I think it's important. Project 2025 represents, in many ways, the consolidation of the authoritarian right. More than 100 groups have signed onto this extremist agenda. 100 groups in and around the conservative movement and the Republican Party. It's not some niche or fringe idea or project. We're seeing authoritarians setting the agenda for the broader right wing, just as they've done in Republican-controlled state after Republican-controlled state. So Project 2025 is happening now. For years, they've used states like Texas and Alabama and Florida and Louisiana as petri dishes for their ideas. Project 2025's architects want to do what authoritarian governments have done all over the world by limiting our basic rights, by attacking the free flow of ideas, by undermining the integrity of our democratic institutions. In that way, Project 2025 is the policy platform for the US face of global authoritarianism. And the communities who are going to feel this the most are the communities already being targeted by these policies that are happening on the state level. Working people in this country work, frankly, too damn hard for too little. Corporate price gougers, pharmaceutical companies, CEOs across most industries are constantly trying to take more from us. And Project 2025 gives them the keys and puts them totally in the driver's seat. Project 2025 calls for rolling back the Biden administration rule that raised the salary threshold for earning overtime, immediately cutting pay for millions of workers. They want to do that minute one, day one when they get in. It seeks to strip millions of public sector and smaller firm workers of their union rights, taking away the rights those workers have to negotiate for better pay and benefits. It guts the minimum wage that allows states to be exempt from minimum wage standards and drives down the wage for everybody. It also dries up cost. Just as inflation has gotten out of control, rather under control, and we need a government that checks price gougers even more, they want to drive up cost and inflation through their policies. And we're looking at prescription drug costs going back up, jack up healthcare insurance rates, and pay for more tax cuts for the wealthy, but increasing taxes on middle-class families. All of that is written in ink in the Project 2025 playbook. And we need to defeat Donald Trump on November 5th in order to prevent Project 2025. But even after we defeat him, we have to continue organizing to defeat the Project 2025 agenda. Because there's Trump, but there's also Trumpism. And for Trumpism and MAGA, Project 2025 will continue to be their agenda. That means contending for power on the local, state, and federal level and setting a new agenda, a positive, progressive agenda, one that strengthens our democratic rights, one that empowers working people all across race, and one that makes life more affordable and better and allows us and our people to thrive.
Thank you so much, Maurice. I really appreciate you being with us tonight and laying out that grounding. And as you were speaking, I have to say that it is so important to note that this is not just about the top of the ticket, right? We have work to do all up and down the ballot, and not only about defeating Trump, but Trumpism, right? And the systems that have caused us to be where we are. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and really speaking and telling us what is really at stake here. Thank you so much.
Good to be.
Now, to continue grounding us in this moment, I would like to introduce someone whose leadership I get to see on display on a daily basis. I have witnessed her passion and her acute ability to not only lead MoveOn, but to work across the movement to connect progressive movement leaders and activists to truly create a country and world where literally everybody can thrive. So please welcome my boss, Executive Director of MoveOn, Rahna Epting. Hey, Rahna.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. And thanks, Maurice, for laying down all the ick in Project 25. It's really great to be here tonight, but more importantly, I am so happy and needed this energy to be with thousands of folks on this call all across the country. So thank you for being here. Thanks for taking out time in your evening. And I want to tell you something. This right here, this type of work, what we're all doing here tonight, coming together, getting the information we need, doing the work, this is how we win. And we will win. Because when we organize, when we mobilize, when we get out the vote, sorry, y'all, but the last several election cycles, we won when we do that work. So let's keep doing that work. So if you're here tonight, it's most likely because you understand the stakes of this election and you've heard some of those things that are in Project 2025 that Maurice walked through. But let's be real, not everyone out there does. Most normal folks aren't nerding out around what's in so-and-so's policy playbook. And so it is our job over the next just over 2 weeks to ensure that everyone understands what is at stake and what the agenda of a Trump administration would look like. And it is plainly written out in their plan in Project 2025. And you know it, I know it, everything. I mean, everything we hold dear is at stake. And I wish that was hyperbole. It is not. What is in their plan And they're serious about it. They wrote it down. They designed it. They put it in a PDF form. They made a website. Like, these folks are serious. What is in their plan really puts at stake American democracy as we know it, as imperfect as it is of an experiment, this grand experiment we've been on. That is at stake. Our rights, our fundamental freedoms, our ability to combat the climate crisis, the Department of Education's existence, everything is in there. And Maurice did a great job walking through it, and we'll walk through more of it tonight. But let's be clear on this. Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans don't just want to reverse the progress we made over the last 4 years. They want to roll back the progress we've made over the last 4 decades. But there is good news. I want you to remember this in this precarious moment, in this race that is all too close to be comfortable. We have defeated Trump and MAGA extremists before. We've actually done it a lot. We beat them in 2018. We beat them in 2020. We beat them in 2022, and we're going to do it again in 2 weeks. All gas. Do not take your foot off the pedal, okay? Because as Kamala says, we are not going back. I ain't going back. So I also want to speak to all the noise that is out there right now. There are a lot of polls, a lot of hot takes, a lot of time to fill on cable TV and radio with pundits giving their take on who's going to win and who's positioned to win and what they think about who's turning out. But it is noise. We need to tune it all out, because what is the only important thing right now is who turns out to vote. It's not the polls. The polls don't tell us who's going to actually turn out to vote. So if we do the work to talk to voters and get them to engage and come vote, we'll win. Just look at 2 years ago. All the pundits and all the so-called experts said it would be a red wave. I was shaking in my boots. I wasn't sure we were going to win. Republicans would make historic gains, is what they were saying. And what happened? Democrats had the best midterm elections in the first term since the Kennedy administration, because we did the work to turn out the vote. We named the stakes. People were clear. The anti-Trump coalition showed up, pure and simple. So every time you get anxious, I'm kind of telling myself this too, giving myself my own therapy. Every time you get anxious, every time you find yourself doom scrolling, and I know you do because we're all addicted to our phones, every time you go looking for that latest poll, listen to what Michelle Obama told us not too long ago. Do something. Channel that anxious energy into phone banking, into door knocking, into talking to your neighbors, into volunteering with any of the groups on this call. Write letters to your family members, to your friends, postcards. Call that aunt that lives in a battleground state that you haven't talked to in a while. You have influence. You have power to turn out the vote and make your one vote all the more powerful. So we're going to get to the rest of the call tonight, but I want you to join us at MoveOn and the Working Families Party. Join our GOTV efforts. Join our vote tripling work. Chris is going to tell you how to do it in just a minute, because every single one of us are key to winning this. I know this has been a long haul. I know we're all tired, but we have 2 more weeks to go to get us over the finish line, and we cannot stop 1 second. 2 more weeks, and we will elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. We will defeat MAGA extremists another time. I really like doing that. I don't know about you. 2 more weeks, and we'll take back the House. 2 more weeks, and we'll keep our Senate majority. Let me say it again. I believe that we will win. We have to put in the work to do it. And it starts with all of us here tonight. So thank you. And I hand it back to Chris.
Thank you so much, Rahna. And I so appreciate, the work that we do and the work that Working Families Party do and the work that the organizations here do. And friends who might be watching this and it's like, okay, what can I do? It's like Rahna said, we have 2 weeks to elect Kamala Harris. We have 2 weeks to defeat MAGA extremists. One more time, we have 2 weeks to take back the House. We have 2 weeks to keep our Senate majority. We have 2 weeks. So in case you are like, all right, well, what can I do now? I'm glad you asked, because I hear you asking. I can hear you now. You can go take out your phone on the screen, you should see a QR code. It's right there, okay? Take out your phone, scan that QR code, or you can go to moveon.org/vote triple the number 2 win. Again, that's moveon.org/vote triple the number 2 win. Do it now. I'll give you a few seconds. By doing this, you pledge to remind at least 3 people, that's family, friends, church members, folks down the street, around the block, Pookie them. You have a whole litany of folks that you can remind to vote. Also, you will receive a follow-up on ways that you can volunteer with us over the next 2 weeks. It is just 15 days, y'all. We have to do the work now. So, before we jump into hearing about some of the issues that are covered in Project 2025, I would like to pass it over to my friend Nagin Farside to tell us a little bit more. We'll be right back after this.
Have you heard of Project 2025?
It's an outline of what to expect for a second Trump term.
Are you familiar with Project 2025?
No. Project 25 is the Heritage Foundation and 100 conservative think tanks. Trump is just a figurehead.
So you're saying he didn't read this 900-page document? He's just going with it?
He didn't read the daily briefings. You think that he read a 700-page document?
Who implements loyalty tests? Is it Project 2025 or Mafia boss Carlo Gambino?
Project 2025.
And Carlo Gambino. Don't take it away from Carlo.
If I was running for president, I'd want a loyalty test to make sure you're going to have my back.
I guess the current loyalty test is to the Constitution.
I would hope so, but at the same time, no.
Okay. Project 2025 states blank should be outlawed. The hint is it starts with a P and it ends with ornography.
Pornography?
Pornography, that's right.
What are they going to do in their spare time?
Pornography. Oh, of course. I thought it's illegal already. No?
There's a freedom of speech thing, so it's like it's pretty legal.
Paying to renounce your citizenship should be outlawed.
That is very specific, and those are all great guesses, but the correct answer is pornography. They would want porn.
Oh, I am on Pornhub.
Blank should be outlawed.
Voting?
What do you think we could expect from a second Trump term?
He will never leave. That's my fear. They're talking about how Biden is old. He'll be 110 and still ripping off and grifting the American treasury.
It just sounds like living inside the devil's ballsack. Uterus, yay or nay?
Half of us have one. Yay.
No, but for Trump's second agenda, nay. And I'm paraphrasing here, but nay.
Our little experimental democracy here is strong, but he's a dick.
There you have it, folks. I think the big message here is please vote.
The message is please vote. And look, don't forget, you can triple that vote by reminding at least 3 of your friends, to vote triple. You are going to remind them to vote this election season. And once you do that, you scan that QR code and that link on your screen, we will come back to you and tell you all the things that you can do with us over the next 2 weeks to make sure that we win this election this November. So let's dig into some of the conversations with some of our guest panelists today. So our next guest hails from the great state of Texas. Drusilla Tigner is the co-executive director of Planned Parenthood Texas. Prior to her time there, Drusilla led the sexuality and gender equality team at the ACLU Texas, where she served as the organization's chief lobbyist and strategist for gender equality. She is an attorney that serves on many boards, including Texas for All, the Lubbock Coalition for Healthcare Access, and the Planned Parenthood State Public Affairs Network Executive Committee. Please welcome Drusilla Tigner. Hey, Drusilla.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. No, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So I'm going to hop right in because, I know we just watched a video with Nagin and it's very funny. It's very comical. But the things that are proposed in Project 2025 are actually not funny at all. So So I'm wondering, what does every voter need to know about Project 2025 as it relates to abortion and reproductive care?
Yeah, I mean, such a good question. And I just want to start with they're not just trying to ban pornography, y'all. They're also going to ban abortion nationwide. That's the first thing. The nationwide abortion ban is coming. Trump likes to skirt the issue. He says he's going to leave it to the states. That is a lie, y'all. Nationwide abortion ban is the number one thing. And do not let them get away with telling you something different. The second thing is they are going to defund Planned Parenthood, which we've already seen them do in the state of Texas. And the third, which is, I think, a little known fact about Project 2025, is they want to take the Department of Health and Human Services and name it the Department of Life. The Department of Life. I have never heard anything more Orwellian than the Department of Life in my existence. So those are the three major policy changes. And what is that going to look like? A nationwide abortion ban is going to be devastating. We've seen it in Texas. There are people who cannot get the care that they need. They have to travel thousands of miles if they can. If they can't, they're being forced to carry pregnancies against their will. Or lots of folks are in situations when they're unwanted pregnancies and they can't, and there's a tragedy that happens and they need abortion care and they can't get that care. We see folks not just in Texas, but we saw two women in Georgia, Amber Thurman and Candy Miller, who lost their lives because of the Georgia abortion ban. That is the type of thing that they want to export out of Georgia and out of Texas to the rest of this country. And that's what's going to happen. The suffering that is happening right now, because I also want to say, this is not theoretical. They didn't just, decide that they were going to try to implement this nationwide without testing it out first, y'all. This is what's happening in Texas right now. We're seeing the cruelty and the impact on individual lives right now in Texas, and that's what we're going to see nationwide. And it's going to get so much worse because when people in Texas can't go, or people anywhere can't go, right now we can go to New Mexico, we can go to Colorado, we can go to California, we can go to our, haven states that are providing care to many, many thousands of people every single day. That will not be an option anymore. There will be nowhere for anybody to go in this country if we lose this election. It cannot be overstated how dire the situation would be, and people will die. Thousands of people will continue to die if we allow this to happen. And I hate saying that. I am not an alarmist. I live in Texas. You cannot be an alarmist. You will not survive. But the reality is that's true. The reality is people will continue to lose their lives if Project 2025 is implemented. Second thing, they're going to defund Planned Parenthood. They've been trying to defund Planned Parenthood for a long time. Nationwide, they were successful in Texas. And because they defunded Planned Parenthood, while we currently have health centers, while there are health centers open in Texas right now, if you're in Texas and you need services, please go. There are a fraction of the amount that there were 15 years ago. And Planned Parenthood isn't just about abortion. It's about STI testing. It's about cancer screenings. It is about birth control. It is about healthcare. And so that's what they want to do. They want to strip away your ability to get trusted, high-quality healthcare from your provider of choice, because I want to say 1 in 4 women in this country have been to a Planned Parenthood in their lifetime. I'm a former Planned Parenthood patient. I know many people on this call probably are, or you love somebody who is. And taking away Planned Parenthood out of the fabric of our healthcare system would be devastating. And the third aspect, this whole concept of Department of Life, what does that mean exactly? I mean, I don't know, but I think what it really means is it's going to be ideologues and politicians making decisions about your healthcare and not doctors and patients. So the reality is it's going to be worse healthcare, more folks are going to die, and it's going to be harder to get what you need, not just with abortion, but all types of services from Planned Parenthood and other folks. And y'all, in Texas, we talk a lot about what our politicians' intent here, and the intent is clear. The cruelty is the point. They are trying to control us. They're trying to control our bodies, and they are trying to ensure that you are afraid and that you stay afraid and that you do not show up and vote. But we have the power. We have the power in this country. We have the power in the state of Texas. We see it every single day in the grit of the Texans who are fighting back against this law, who are helping people get out of the state, who are supporting people in need. And that's what we'll continue to do. And with all of your help, we're going to make sure that not only are we going to save Planned Parenthood in this country, not only are we going to ensure that people get the rights that we get access to abortion when we need it, but we're going to take back our rights in states like Texas and Georgia, because we're going to keep fighting in this country, and we're going to do it with your help.
Thank you so much. I mean, like, it's so interesting because, the microcosm that is Texas, those of us who live around the country, we watch it intently to see how things are going and really to put our finger on what's moving and what's happening. So I wonder, what does your experience with an abortion ban in Texas these past few years, what does that tell us about what we should expect in other states should Project 2025 happen?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear about what the Texas abortion ban is first. So it's completely banned. Abortion is completely banned in Texas. There are no exceptions for rape or incest. There are very few exceptions for the life of the patient. It is a first-degree felony to provide an abortion in the state of Texas, which means that a doctor can go to jail for the rest of their life if they decide to provide care to somebody who needs it. And it is a culture of fear that has been created by our government to keep people down and to keep people from accessing care. And we've seen it in stories like Amanda Zawadzki. Many of you may have heard Amanda or heard of her. She's been traveling in the country trying to raise awareness of how devastating the Texas abortion ban is. She had a very wanted pregnancy. She had a complication with her pregnancy. She needed a very basic procedure called a D&C. Many people who've had a miscarriage or know somebody who's had a miscarriage has probably heard of it. It is basic in both abortion care and miscarriage care, and doctors refused to give it to her because it would be considered an abortion, and they were afraid of the Texas abortion ban, as they should be. We have a very aggressive attorney general who is out there trying to prosecute have any excuse to prosecute folks. And so she had to wait until she was septic. I mean, she had a severe infection that threatened her life to be able to get the care that she needs. And now there's a question about whether or not she's going to be able to have children in the future. And it's not just stories like Amanda's. It's folks who, most people who get abortions have children already. They are in a situation where they're wanting to provide the best life that they can for the children that they already have. They are not oftentimes, people, there's a stereotype of it's like a young person who doesn't really know what they want to do with their life. That absolutely is a lot of people who get care, but many times it is a parent who needs to be able to, care for the children that they have, and they need to be able to get out of state to get it. But people, y'all, like, we know the most vulnerable people in our state are the ones that are impacted the most. It's people with low resources, people with low incomes, people of color, young people who cannot afford to get out of state. And so they're being forced to carry pregnancies against their will every single day. It's happening in the state of Texas. And I hate telling the statistic, but it is a reality, and it's just a trigger warning. I said earlier, rape and incest is not an exception in the Texas law. And right now, there was a study that just came out recently that said there were 26,000 pregnancies in the state of Texas as a result of rape in the state, and those folks are being forced to carry those pregnancies against their will. And so it's hard to overstate the tragedy that is like not being able to get the care that you need in Texas. And that is 100% going to be exported to the rest of this country unless we stand up and do something.
Wow. First of all, thank you for sharing that. And even in that space, the vulnerability to share that, because it's such a personal thing that affects everyone, right? It affects our families and how we relate to them. And so thank you so much for sharing with the folks watching tonight the seriousness of what this is. And like, just because, look, I live in Illinois, I live in Chicago, and so we hold on to it, but there's so much at stake with this. And the intent behind Project 2025 is to really change the trajectory of this country for everybody. There is no real safe space if these policies are enacted. So I really want to just take this moment and thank you so much for digging in with us and sharing with our members the seriousness of Project 2025. So thank you so much, Drusilla, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Of course, thank you. All right, folks, again, it is serious. It is a serious thing. Again, I said at the top of the call, while the Harris campaign has injected us with a lot of joy and a lot of excitement, there are still very serious, critical things at stake in this election. So I actually would like to go back to my boss, the ED of MoveOn, Rahna Epting, because, we've been doing a lot of work over the years, Rahna, and, we are a multi-issue organization, so we do a lot of different types of issues, fighting for, as I said earlier, a world where we can all thrive and really pick each other up. But I really want to shift now gears into climate change, right? Because this is really something that is going to affect everybody. Like, this is one of the one things that really, no matter where you are, no matter what your social economic status is, it will get to you eventually, right? Like, this is something that is so important. So the first question that I have for you is, the Biden-Harris administration passed the largest investment to combat climate change in American history. Like, we know that. We've seen it. We helped fight for it, right? How would Project 2025 impact these historic efforts?
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. Like, the Biden administration and all of us that advocated and pushed for the administration and Congress to pass the Inflation Reduction Act, we had a big win in the Inflation Reduction Act. It coming out of the COVID crisis. Remember, our economy was really suffering. Folks were out of work. This was an investment in the United States of America. This was a historic investment, not just in combating climate change, but in creating jobs and investing in communities that have long been underinvested in throughout this country. So it's an economic boon to communities that have been left behind for far too long. But in terms of climate, so it does both, I guess is my point. It employs people and it creates wealth in communities that were underinvested in, and it helps to combat climate change at historic proportions. It is $270 billion of investments in clean electricity, clean vehicles, clean fuels, energy efficiency, electrical upgrades, in environmental justice, so programs that help ensure marginalized or vulnerable communities don't necessarily experience all the pollution and they are protected from this, and more. So this is huge for the country, for the people who live in the country, for them to thrive, for them to make money, for them to live in healthy communities. And Donald Trump and Project 2025 make it very clear they intend to roll back these historic investments. They want to claw back this money as best they can, which is not great. And that's what we have to protect.
Definitely. And you talked about some of the things that they are trying to roll back. I wonder if you know any of the components of Project 2025 that are climate concern that every voter should know about, right? Like, one or two things that we think that folks should know about Project 2025 as it relates to climate.
Okay, so if you're a climate person, you've heard of the Paris Climate Agreement. And we know in Donald Trump's term, he pulled us out of this agreement. It is the international treaty on climate change. It's over 196 parties at the UN agree to roll back their emissions to protect the climate. And he pulled the United States, one of the largest economies in the world, if not the largest economy in the world. He pulled us out of this and he said, never mind, you all can go protect the climate on your own. So if he's back in office and his Project 2025 buddies are pulling the strings, they intend to pull us out of that accord once again. And so that would have great impact on allowing the US to then just emit all of these pollutants into the climate and create massive problems again. It also, another thing folks should know, there are a ton of clauses in Project 2025 that show that they intend to dismantle the Environmental Protection Agency as we know it. They want to cut regulations, cut, designed to protect the environment and public health, including clean energy initiatives. They want to cut the agency's environmental justice and public engagement functions, basically the part of the EPA that protects people who are just living their lives in their communities from suffering from exorbitant pollutants in their air, in their water, et cetera. and more. But I would say those two things, like the EPA was implemented back in the 70s when our water was awful, our air was awful. I remember flying into Los Angeles and it was just smoggy as all get out. And the EPA comes in and it creates rules that incentivize companies and or penalize companies from over polluting so that it protects people and protects us. And it would severely dismantle this really, really important agency.
Definitely, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Rahna. And like, I would encourage everybody who is watching, like, take a few minutes over this next week and just read parts of Project 2025, right? If you just take a few seconds and do that and really dig in on that, oh, it is scary stuff. Very scary stuff. All right. So now, I see somebody's raising their hand. Are we okay?
I just wanted to add to that. It's Mark Ruffalo. I wanted to add to what another thing that they're doing is they want to dismantle the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Now, these are the people who predict hurricanes. They give us up-to-date measures of the wind, help us understand the damage, where to go during an evacuation. And get people ready. Now, we've seen two major storms come back to back. It's historical. It's only the tip of the iceberg. The Project 25 will just completely abolish the NOAA. And it will also replace many of the scientists and public servants who are the experts on climate change. Project 2025 will gut that entire class of public servants. And it's a time when we need this particular kind of data and research in order to mitigate against the worst of what's going to happen with Project 2025 and the worst that's going to happen with climate change. And so it's not just what immediately is going to happen. It's what is going to happen to our nation over time, and how we're not going to have reliable information to protect ourselves and to acclimate to what is coming. And part of surviving climate change is going to be surviving what's coming and having the data in order to prepare for the future. And Project 2025 aims to dismantle those organizations that are meant to protect us in those ways.
Definitely, definitely. First of all, y'all, it's Mark Ruffalo. Hey, but no, seriously, and you know, even growing up here in Chicago, like in the last several years, we've started having tornadoes in the city. For the first time last year, I heard a tornado siren. I have never, and I've lived here most of my life, never heard a tornado siren in the city of Chicago. This year alone, we've had a few scares, right? And so it's like, there's so much at stake. And it's really, you know, we really do have to take this seriously of the when they say they want to roll back these practices, roll back these programs, this is what is at stake. This is really dangerous. And like I said, folks who thought that they were safer at certain points, you're not. We all live on this one planet, and it is a lot to navigate. So thank you so much. Thank you, Rahna, for digging in on climate. And thank you, Mark, for digging in on climate. We're going to come back to you later on in the call. Well, thank you so much, and really pointing that out for us and putting the fine tooth on that. Okay, so we're going to do something together. We are going to scan the QR code to send messages right now that are ready-made to the person or the people that we are going to vote triple. We're going to do this together. So pull out your phones. You can scan the QR code on the screen. And once you scan that QR code on the screen, a message will pop up right there. And you can just put in your friend, your mama, your dad, your cousins. You could put in their name, and it's like, bam, we're going to remind them right there, because this election is super important. We really need everybody out voting. We need everybody doing the work. We need everybody doing what they can to make sure that we win. Because listen, there is so much at stake this election. So again, take your phone out, scan that QR code, and we can start reminding our friends and family right now to get their behind up and vote. Because ain't nobody got time for that, as my mother used to say. We don't have time to go back. All right. So now, before we go on to our next two guests, I would be remiss if I did not mention and send best birthday wishes to Vice President Harris, who turned 60 today, sending all the best as we continue the work to win this election in the next 15 days. So our next two guests have spent years working in labor. James Kirby is the chairman of the Teamsters National Black Caucus. He has been a proud member of the Teamsters Local 480 in Nashville, Tennessee since '96. Kirby began his career at Trailer Conditioners with UPS, and then went to work at Yellow Transportation, YRC in 2002. In 2003, he went on leave of absence from Yellow Freight to work for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters organizing department until March of 2022. That is a long leave of absence. He has served as steward, trustee, recording secretary for the Teamsters Local 480. He has done so much work. We are so glad to him. Welcome, Chairman. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And then additionally, we are so happy to welcome Claude Cummings Jr. He is the president of the Communications Workers of America. Their work is not just around communications and information industries. They do news media, the airlines, broadcast and cable television, public service, higher education, healthcare, manufacturing, you name it. They do a lot. Prior to him being elected as president, he served as an at-large member of CWA's executive board. Then as vice president of CWA District 6, representing Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. He also led the Human Rights Department for the union. Let me tell you something, President Cummings has a long list of things that he has done over his career. Just to name a couple, he's been the first vice president, serves as the first vice president of the NAACP Houston chapter, the second vice president of the state NAACP conference. He's an executive board member of the National NAACP Labor Committee. He is a board member of the AFL-CIO executive. He has done a lot. But in addition, as I mentioned, Vice President Harris's birthday is today. So is Mr. Cummings. So I wanted to extend a very warm birthday wish to you. I'm very, very excited to be talking to you today. Very honored. Thank you both for being with us today. I'm super excited to talk to you. So we're gonna jump right on in because we got a lot to talk about. And so I'm gonna actually start with Claude. So Project 2025 is a roadmap for billionaires and CEOs to use our government, right, to take more pay and benefits away from working people. Can you tell us how these policies would accomplish that?
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and thank you for having me tonight. And that's a great question. Workers have been organizing at an unprecedented rate, to be quite honest with you. And Project 2025 aims to stop that trend. Simple as that. The pro-corporate policies within Project 2025 would make it harder for working people to get ahead and stack the deck in favor of CEOs. It poses a significant threat to workers' ability to organize unions and negotiate better wages and working conditions. The proposals in the labor section in Project 2025, and y'all listen to this, focus on eroding union power and empowering employers. Simple as that. For example, it backs a bill, which by the way is co-sponsored by J.D. Vance, that allows corporate executives to set up company-run unions where management controls the process of which employees serve on bargaining committees. So if this policy was adopted, management could set up their own fake unions to block real unions that actually represent workers in the workplace and their interests. Project 2025 also bans majority signups. It makes it illegal for employers to voluntarily recognize unions, which allows organizers to overcome major obstacles to winning union elections. The only ones who benefit from banning voluntary recognitions are anti-union employers. Simple as that. Additionally, Project 2025 also recommends firing Jennifer Abruzzo, a longtime union attorney, as the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel on day one of the Trump administration. This would undermine the NLRB and would no doubt lead to Trump appointing a professional union buster to take that role, like he did when he took office before. These are only a few examples of how Project 2025 harms workers. It would also misclassify employees as independent contractors, eliminate prevailing wage laws, allow companies to union bust in secret without disclosure, eliminate merit staffing for tens of thousands of public employees, and rescind mandatory overtime pay. And this is what's really crazy. I want you all to really think about this. And this is probably the most offensive of all. It would encourage more use of child labor. Can you believe that? In 2024, and they're actually calling for expanding of the use of child labor. Absolutely ridiculous. When taken together, these proposals shift power away from working people and worsens working conditions for all workers all across the country. Making it much harder to unionize means workers are more susceptible to workplace violations and unfair working conditions without recourse. The authors of Project 2025 see support for workers in conflict with their goal of maximizing corporate profit, and they are ready to enact that anti-worker agenda on day one. Again, on day one of the Trump administration. It would be absolutely horrible for workers in this country.
Wow. Thank you so much, President Cummings. And it's so crazy. Like I think not enough people understand how labor has literally shaped this country, and what Project 2025 is seeking to do is literally dismantle a lot of norms that we actually take for granted, right? A lot of things that we don't think about.
Middle class would be destroyed in this country.
Yeah.
Administration.
Yeah, no. So thank you so much for sharing that. I want to jump now to Chairman Kirby. Sir, can you speak to how Project 2025 would specifically degrade workers' rights and our ability to fight for better working conditions?
Yes. I'd like to take a point of privilege first off and say happy birthday, Brother Cummings. I hope you're having a joyful day. A great born day for you, and continue to stay young and active and progressive as you are.
Thank you.
The degrade of worker rights through Project 2025. As Brother Cummings hit on major points that Project 2025 will degrade the working person in America. We must remember, organized labor sets the standards for all working people in America. You know, one thing that Project 2025 outlines, that companies would be able to halt contracts midstream at a drop of a dime. It wouldn't care about the expiration date. They could actually say that the contract is null and void and rip it away. They would actually ban public service unions. You know, and Brother Cummings talked about the secrets of union bustings. Right now, a union buster and the company must provide the Department of Labor the outline of how much being paid to the union busters to actually, quote unquote, educate workers. And that's called a LM2 report. The most union busters make anywhere from $4,500 an hour, if not upwards to $1,000 an hour, with all expenses paid. You know, you got to think about that. And they're fighting workers that's making sometimes $7, $8 an hour. So they would love to keep it a secret that they paying a union buster anywhere from $400 to $1,000 plus expenses. Then the union buster must also report a LM21. And this is something that a lot of working people and the general public don't even understand or know, that this must be reported. And under Project 2025, that would take all that away. They also, Brother Cummings talked about the child labor protection. They want to rip that out. No more child protection. So you'll have kids that's 8, 9, 10 years old out there working in these factories, in these actual farms where corporate America, and I say corporate America, some of our Republican counterparts actually already use folks and abuse folks too. And now they'll be looking to use kids. They'll stop paying overtime to working people. If they could get away with that and give comp time and not give real overtime, where will America be at? Because the average American is relying on overtime to survive now, because they're going paycheck to paycheck. You know, it's also, you got to look at the ability to fight. Brother Cummings talked about they will make it illegal for a company to recognize a group of workers that want a union. A lot of times in a lot of our project labor agreements, it's work done on the front end by labor unions and workers.
Oh, Brother Kerbeam, I think you muted yourself.
Oh, there you go. If you take a look at what happened at Volkswagen in Tennessee when the governor and state and U.S. congressperson got involved, when Volkswagen was ready to recognize the workers years ago of being unionized, they stood in the way of that. And those workers went for years without a union until they voted earlier this year to become unionized. Those type of things will hurt us overall. Government getting involved with companies and actually taking funds away from them because they want to make sure that workers have a voice in the workplace and they actually are paid well, there's something wrong with that. It really is. But how do you supposed to reside in the community and survive in the community and you don't have a fair wage? You don't have fair working conditions. So, you know, we got to look at what Project 2025 really means, and we actually got to ask our union brothers and sisters to take a deep look at this, because Project 2025 will also gut us as unions, not just people coming in the future, but our current unions and our overall working families in America. And everybody will be affected by Project 2025. You know, we got to make sure that we educate folks that it may sound good when they say right to work, but it's right to steal. Wow. That's exactly what it is, because they're stealing from the working people in America when they actually start talking about right to work.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I have to, you know, whenever I see folks who look like me doing the thing, I just have to take a moment and say thank you for what you're doing. And I really do look up to you and this movement, and I'm so appreciative. And I just want to make sure that if don't nobody else give you flowers today, I'm going to give you flowers, because we need this. And so many of us who were raised in middle class, lower middle class, who had parents who were part of some unions, who were able to do what they did because the unions were backing them. I appreciate the work that you do on a day-to-day basis. It's not easy, but I want to take this moment and this opportunity to let you know that I honor you personally, and really, really from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Please show some love to both President and Chairman for being with us on tonight. I'm going to be right back right after this message.
Morning, everyone. I'm Professor Webb. I'm sorry.
Under Project 2025, immigration enforcement can show up anywhere, anytime, to detain our peers, friends, and neighbors.
Yeah, we have her here.
Together, let's stand up to Project 2025 before it's too late.
All right, so our next guest is Grayson Martinez Rosas, Executive Director of United We Dream and United We Dream Action. At United We Dream and United We Dream Action, Grace's first role was leading grassroots field efforts as an affiliate leader of the Council for Minority Student Affairs before being elected to represent Texas members on the National Leadership Committee. During her 8 years as staff, Grace has held the roles of civic engagement field manager, national field coordinator, advocacy and policy director, and deputy executive director. You know, had some roles. Okay. As a queer undocumented as a queer undocumented woman of color who grew up in a working class family, Grace is the embodiment of the intersectional movement that we need in order to win dignity and freedom for our people. So please welcome Grace. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. And today I'm calling you from Phoenix, Arizona, a battleground state. We just had a big roll to the polls march where people dropped off their ballots, early voting. So the people are ready. Project 2025, whatever comes our way, people are going to stand up and fight.
I know that's right. And look, you better be out in the field, okay? I'm a little jealous.
No.
I'm up here sitting on this little chair. I need to get out because we just got 15 days. I need to do something. So let's hop right on in. So look, now Project 2025 has a number of extremely egregious proposals directly targeting immigrants. What do you feel is the most concerning about the agenda and Project 2025, given our current political landscape?
You know, Donald Trump said that on day one, he was going to appoint himself the emperor, if you say it, for the sole purpose of detaining and deporting mass millions of people. And so I'm here because I represent the 1.2 members of United We Dream, 0.2 million members of United We Dream, 11 million undocumented people just like myself that are tired of living in the shadows. We're tired of not being counted as a part of America when we know that we bring the light, we bring the work, we bring the sazon, as Latinos would say, to everything that we do. And so Project 2025 is an egregious assault on democracy. It is a promise that Donald Trump and his supporters are making to all of us. And it's not just about, when he talks about mass deportation, it's not just using the $1 billion Department of Homeland Security to detain and deport millions of people. It's also, he's calling to use and enact the military in our state. He's calling to use the local police departments to go and raid our communities. Raids are not new to our folks. They've been happening in our workplaces. They've been happening in our schools, in our hospitals. We've seen Project 2025 in action, actually, during Trump's first term, when we heard the stories of Black men and women being whipped at the border by CBP officers and Black women being forcibly sterilized in detention centers. And so this is not something that will just happen if he's elected. It is something that's happening now in our communities. It's something that's happening that our people are organizing around. And we know that we're going to take steps forward together. We're not taking any step backs. And so United We Dream Action, the members of United We Dream are calling on all of us to provide sanctuary to one another, to ensure that we're protecting one another and that we know that our issues are interconnected. Climate change, the climate catastrophe that we're seeing, is responsible for the movement of people all across the globe. And we have to have a response that is more than just detaining and deporting people in our borders, but rather welcoming them and knowing that immigrants are part of the resilience workforce that we will need as we respond to climate catastrophes, as we respond to the continuing inequities in our economy. Immigrants have the experience of what it means to move when you don't want to move from your home country. We know what it means to feel supported and welcome, and we're going to be part of the solution, no matter what Project 2025 has to say, no matter what Trump has to say. We're here to stay.
I know that's right. It's so interesting, both with our last two panelists and with you. There's so much, we've been chanting it, we're not going back. Who they trying to take us back? And I'm not,
That's right.
And not just a couple of decades, it seems like a couple hundred years they're trying to take us back, right? It's really, really scary. I have one more question and I'm gonna let you get back to the rally. I know you're busy. What do you want to shout from the rooftops and make sure every voter is clear about Trump's immigration plans for his second administration? What is one or two things that you like, look, I need you to know this right now?
Oh, I love that question. The first thing I'll say is that immigrants and immigration are not a problem to be solved. Immigrants and immigration are not a problem to be solved. The opposition has invested $175 million on ads and misinformation to the Democrats $1 million versus to defend immigrants. But they're spreading lies about us, and they're saying that our border is in crisis. That is not true. Immigrant communities live in those border communities, and what we have to do as a country is make a decision about who belongs here, who are we welcoming, and who do we need to be in this moment. The second thing that I want you to know is that though some of our opposition might want us to go back into the shadows, I'm undocumented, I'm queer, I'm from the great state of Texas. I live now here in Phoenix, Arizona, where they just used 100-year law to cast an assault on the bodies of women and our right to choose. We are not going back. We're not going back into the shadows. We're not going back to a place of fear. We're not going back 100 years, 200 years. We're ready to organize because this conversation, it's about power. It's about the ability to build power for the long term. And United We Dream Action, the people here in Arizona, in Florida, in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in Nevada, we're ready to fight.
I know that's right. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Grace. I know you're out in the field and doing the work. I'm a little jealous because I need to be out there doing something too.
Come on, Chris, come on. We're ready for you. There's a Final Four here in Arizona. Come on and vote with us or do a door knocking.
Girl, don't play with me because I'll get on the plane, okay? Don't threaten me with a good time, okay? But thank you so much for being with us tonight. So much gratitude to you, and thank you for all that you do. All right. Yes. All right. So now we've come to the time in our program where we have our final two guests of the evening. Both are very iconic actors and activists. I've been a fan for years. Before the call started, I had my moment to do my fanning, so I did not do it live, and I am so honored. So known for many roles on stage and screen, like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind to Rumor Has It, and of course, the Hulk. Okay, I wish we had a whole another time to talk about the Hulk, but that's another time. I can't do that right now. In the Marvel Universe, please welcome Mr. Mark Ruffalo. And then known for their film and television roles like That 70s Show. Okay, that was my stuff. I don't know. Okay, if you're a real fan, you know. And Encanto, so happy. And they do a lot of work, a lot of activism, especially around the Latino vote. Please welcome Wilmer Valderrama.
Hey, thank you for having me, guys.
Definitely. So I am very honored to be having this conversation with you both, and I'm going to jump right on in so we can get to these questions. So I'm going to start with you, Mark. So you have been outspoken about the dangers of Project 2025 for months now, and you were recently on a podcast episode of David Pepper's series Trump's Project 2025 Up Close and Personal. Yeah. Which spells out the real life implications of this plan. You were in the episode about mass deportations. What did you learn from that experience, and what concerns you the most about Project 2025?
Well, the thing that was shocking, I mean, you read it on the paper, it's pretty flat, but what David Pepper's doing is actually creating stories of how it would affect us in our lives, what it would look like. And I play a prison guard in one of these camps. Now, we're talking about deporting 15 million people. Now, just to give you an idea of how difficult it will be to hold those people, to gather them up, to put them in detention or detainment or concentration camps. in the United States right now, we have 1.2 million prisoners in prisons. 1.2 million. That is a handful for us at that number. What was shocking was 15 million people. How are you going to do that? What kind of manpower is that going to take? What kind of organizing is it going to take? And the other thing that was really shocking to me was the cost of this thing is $315 billion just to start to implement that. At a time when the Trump administration wants to give away more tax breaks to the rich, they want to impede, blow up our economy with this crazy tariff plan, and now add another $315 billion to our debt, while taking out an entire workforce. There was that, but then there was just the human cost. These guards tearing families apart, having to police families inside of these concentration camps. How do you educate children while they're waiting to be deported? How do you feed people? How do you clothe them? How do you house them? How do you give them shelter? Those are the real life questions that have to be answered. And who are we as a nation when we're taking these people that have contributed an enormous amount to our economy, to our culture, to our lives, and treating them like, well, we saw what happened with the cages. We tore families apart, put them in dog cages. What is 15 million people of that going to look like? So that was my experience. It was shocking. It's terrifying to me. And it's why I'm so honored to be here with Wilmer, because this is something that he's really put so much time and energy in his life and knowledge and life experience into. So I want to really pass it on, or I'll have you pass it on to him. He knows more than me.
No, Mark, first of all, yeah, thank you, man, for your passion and your heart and your respect to our community. You know, the Latino community has been obviously, you know, kind of a silent force. You know, the jobs that, you know, oftentimes our cultures take, you know, they are assumed to be made or done magically, like they just magically get done, you know, and their contribution has unfortunately been more and more attempt to a complete delete, you know, into the books of history. So, you know, when we talk a lot about you know, this community and, you know, the many years that I've been privileged to be one of the voices that advocates for the Latinx community and the immigrant rights for decades now, I've learned to understand so many different things, and the things that also are at stake, you know, when it comes to an agenda like this one, that calls for, you know, targeting immigrant communities through mass deportation, raids, you know, ending birthright citizenship, separating families, and dismantling our nation's asylum system. I mean, it promotes destruction of communities by encouraging immigration enforcement actions at sensitive places like schools, playgrounds, and churches, you know, and you know, and to complement what Mark is saying in other ways, you talk about the cost. You know, this is something that a lot of people don't really talk about, and they don't want you to really understand or know about the undocumented community. It's just bad business what they're thinking about. In 2022 alone, undocumented immigrant households paid $46.8 billion in federal taxes and $29.3 billion in state and local taxes. The undocumented immigrants also contributed $22.6 billion to Social Security and $5.7 billion to Medicare. I mean, it's a complete destabilization of our economy and our community, and a complete disrespect to what this community not only has done with their bodies and souls and aiming of just stability and making ends meet, but also what they've done to our you know, for our country. You know, they wear uniforms too. You know, they bleed for this country as well. You know, and the paraphrasing of our stories and the deletion of our contribution is absolutely wrong, and that's not something, you know, as someone who's proud of this country, or proud to be an American, and most importantly live in the American dream, That's what this country is about, is how do we experience the American dream and then give it back to America and contribute back, which is what this culture has done forever. We don't come here to ask anybody for anything. We come here to work, and somehow that's being criminalized.
Yes, no, definitely, definitely. Mark, I want to shift gears slightly. You've been supportive of Kamala's campaign. What's one of the most compelling reasons why you think folks should vote for her this election season?
Look, this is a very, very important election. I mean, we hear it all the time, how important it is. And what we're talking about is really the essence of what this country is. Now, there's no perfect candidate. And we have to be very mature about how we approach the future, politically speaking. Trump offers us more chaos. We've already seen what a Trump presidency looks like. And it's division, it's chaos, it's a promise of more violence. It's a promise of military in our cities. It's a promise of the destruction of our First Amendment rights, and on and on and on. And it's the end of any kind of mitigation that we can do about climate change. We've seen a bit of what Kamala has to offer us through the Biden administration, but we also see another kind of framing come into focus, and it's just the diverseness of this country, and having a woman, a Black woman, leading this country with the first Jewish second man, and a working class coach who owns no property, has no stocks, is one of the cleanest politicians to have ever served on the Hill, and his support of the gay and lesbian children and students in his school. This is the most diverse ticket that we have seen in the history of the United States. We saw it at the DNC. We saw our beautiful color and diversity and power and strength and beauty and talent crystallized at the DNC. We have to vote for her because not only because we're voting against Trump, but because of what she brings. She is strong, she is smart, she has served. She spent the last 4 years traveling all over the world, cleaning up the mess that Trump had made. She's a statesperson, she is a prosecutor, and she has the hope and the future and her youth to carry us into the next century in a way that is representative of the entirety of the United States.
Absolutely.
And so that's the choice we have to make today.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And to your point, we have to be mature about this, like what is the best choice? It is very clear. It is a stark contrast. Remember, I wonder if I could go to you one more again. What's one of the most compelling reasons why you think Latinos should vote in this election?
Well, thank you for that. And Mark, thank you for that contrast. It's so important to really understand, what's the tomorrow we are going to experience, right? What's the energy we need to have as a nation if we're going to get ourselves into the next phase of us as a country together. To your question, I mean, look, I've been doing for 20 years Voto Latino, which is an organization that Rosario Dawson and I, been working on, and she founded, 20 years ago. We've learned to understand, the evolution of the Latino community as when it comes to what seat at the table they actually really have. Most critically, we saw the awakening of the Latino community in multiple senses. When the senses, they realize, oh, wait a minute, it's not just one or two of us in this country, right? Like we're not a guest in this country. We actually live here. And that really fired up everyone saying like, well, imagine if this many Latinos register to vote. that was a moment in history and in elections and in midterm elections and in all the different candidates where they said, oh, wait a minute, if they register to vote, we're going to have to keep them in mind when it comes to campaigning and negotiating what we need, what bills, what laws, what neighborhoods actually look like, what municipal funding is going to happen, when we understand how many and who is living in these neighborhoods. There was a different tune. Corporate America, entertainment started taking, note. They're like, whoa, there's other levels of interest in here. And I thought that was a really important aspect that our community started waking up and saying, oh, wait a minute, it's not that we're exotic, it's that we live here, right? It's that we've been here. And in this election, just to kind of bring up a couple of things into the front, in this election, over 36 million Latinos are eligible to vote, right? Young voters, about 45% of the 40 million Gen Zs who will be eligible to vote in 2024 are young people of color, including 8.8 million Latinos, 5.7 million Black youth, 1.7 million Asian Americans, and 1.8 million multiracial youth. In 2024, marks a historical moment for our communities altogether. In 2020, right, Latino voters were the second largest block of voters in the country. And we talk about battlegrounds. We talk about the places that, that created a lot of news during the elections. And in states like Arizona, Colorado, North Carolina, Nevada, and Virginia, it was Latino youth who made up the largest share of that turnout. So Latino voters and other voters of colors will be affected the most. Right. So protecting the laws that give our communities the peace of mind that they can continue to, protecting those laws that gives our communities, the work that we put in for our American dream. Most importantly, those protections that took decades for all of our communities to fight for and achieve for those who deserve it. And protecting the executive orders that will keep our families together. We have a responsibility not only to show up, but to continue to pave the road for our culture. Like, what are we going to look like to the next generation if we don't actually stand up and show up for what's quite literally going to affect them? So I think this is a moment where Latinos really need to not only join the conversation, but be part of this national family as we continue to shape what this country is going to be tomorrow. And I'm privileged, like Mark, all of us, to be able to just amplify the voices of those individuals in these communities who unfortunately can't just say, hey man, that's not what we deserve, So I'm just privileged to be able to have an immigrant story that reflects on that and be able to be in the community long enough to say, hey, I know what we need, and this is not the conversation we deserve.
Absolutely. And there's something that you just said that I wrote down after you said it is, what are we going to look like to the future generations if we don't take this moment? I've had so many conversations with my friends, my circle, about how the lives we are living are the result of our parents, our grandparents, our great-great-parents making the sacrifices and going through what they went through for us to be here. Sometimes I think we forget that there are folks coming after us, right? That there are folks who will 100 years from now look back and like, why did they do that like that? Like, if they did this, something would have gone a different way, right? So it's very important to not only look at this election and be like, oh, this is super important, but think about it in the context of time, right? We are literally doing the work to save democracy. And if we don't do it now, 100 years from now, the generation will be like, well, what the fuck were they doing? Excuse me.
Chris, to kind of cover what you're saying here, this election is really important. What's also very important? Midterm elections.
Yes.
What's really important? Those local elections. That is when we really can hold the line for the communities that really deserve it, right? Who is those local leaders? Who is those state-level leaders that are really going to champion the conversation? Who's going to debate on behalf of the progress that has been made by you said, multiple generations of people that fight for what's forward, So, thank you for that, and thank you for that sentiment, Chris.
Of course, and look, I want to just, before I let y'all go, because I might not ever talk to you again, but before I let you go, I just want to say thank you. It is not lost on me. Like, this is such a turbulent time, and nobody is really safe from the criticism. So, standing up and even using your celebrity to do so, that is a thing, right? And we know that some of the folks that in power and some of the folks who are talking heads, they will come after anybody who stands up for what's right. And so thank you for using your platform. Thank you for using this space. Thank you for using your celebrity to really draw attention to what's happening, what's at stake, because I don't think a lot of people know what's at stake here. I don't think a lot of people know about Project 2025, which is why this particular live stream is probably one of the most important live streams that I've done in MoveOn, because it really is a warning. It really is a time to think and reflect about what's at stake in this next election and what's coming if we do not take action now. So I want to thank both of you for being with us tonight, Wilbur and Mark. Like, such an honor to do this with you. And I want to also add a shout out to listen to the episode of the podcast that Mark is in. You can go to Trump's Project 2025. I think the banner is going to come up on the screen, and you can listen to that podcast. You can download it, listen to it again, send it to your friends, right? So folks can hear about what's happening, know what's going on, and take a little time in these next couple of weeks, not only to do the work, okay, and I'm going to say something about that in a moment, but to read a little bit of Project 2025, because I think it's important that we are informed about what's happening, informed about what is to come next. So I want to thank Mark and Wilmer again, and to our esteemed guests, Claude Cummings, James Kerbeam, Grayson Martinez Rosas, Drusilla Tigner, Maurice Mitchell, and Rahna Epting. We had a time on tonight, and I am so glad that I was here and had the honor of hosting it. So, of course, thank you to all of you who are watching via YouTube, moveon.org/live, wherever you're watching this from. We want to thank you so much for doing that. So, listen, you can make your plan to vote right now, right? You can make your plan to vote right now. If you go to workingfamilies.org/vote, you can make your plan. We have done so much work to help you show up, right? So go to workingfamilies.org/vote, and make sure that you definitely make a plan to vote. Also, you can again go to that QR code on your screen. We want to make sure that as many people that we know in our families and our friend circles, that they come out to vote. So you can vote triple your vote right now by going and signing this up. And not only that, we will get back with you with ways that you can dig in with us over the next 15 days. Now, that being said, we are going to be actually back here next Sunday for I Scream, You Scream, We All Scream for Harris-Walz at our Get Out the Vote virtual ice cream social. I know you got to show up to see what it's all about, okay? So come chat with some of the nation's top ice cream icons who have partnered with MoveOn's Scoop the Vote efforts this year. We'll share stories from the tour of our Get Out the Vote ice cream truck, swap ice cream anecdotes, and get ourselves set for the sweetness of elected Kamala Harris to the White House. So again, you need to join us next week at moveon.org/live, and you will even get a chance to get a pint of Ben & Jerry's Kamala's Coconut Jubilee. So, and this is a hot ticket because they have not given me any of it. I do not know what it tastes like. I know it's good, but they have not allowed me to taste it at all. So I'm going to try to sign up for it, but I know they won't let me. Thank you all so much tonight for being here. I'm so honored to be with you all. Thank you. Make sure that you take these next 15 days and do the work. You have time. You have no excuses. Get your behind up, sign up, and go and make sure we win this election. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good night.